I'm Ty Austin over here at Denny's Auto, and this is a 2015 Honda Accord with a 2.4 liter four-cylinder, and I'm going to be showing you how to do an oil change today. Open the hood. A couple questions that are often asked when doing an oil change is what kind of oil do I use, where do I go to get oil, and how do I know what type or how much? On this vehicle, it's a little easier. It tells you how much. This one here, it says it takes 0W20, but the best way to go about it is just go to your local parts store like an AutoZone, O'Reilly's, or an Advanced Auto Parts, and you can ask them, hey, I've got this vehicle, what I need a oil filter and I need oil for it, and they'll get you set up with the right oil filter, and they'll tell you how much oil you need and of what type. The main concern on what type of oil, if you want the correct weight, like this vehicle takes 0W20, meaning you can't use 5W20 oil because that oil is too thick for this engine. 0W20 comes in different styles of semi-synthetic or a full synthetic. Newer full synthetic oils will last up to 10 or 15,000 miles, but the main issue with that is the oil filters themselves. These things will again get clogged up at about 5,000 miles. So you do have to change your oil every 5,000 miles. So 5,000 miles, if you're using a full synthetic oil, is the amount that you should. So when you're taking oil cap off, I like to do it before I lift the vehicle up. I like to set it here where the hood latch hits the front bumper. That way, if you forget to put the oil cap back on, you can't close the hood. We are using a professional grade rack as we are a professional shop. With us being a professional shop, we have this rack here, but you don't need a rack like this or a rack at all to do your oil change. You can just use, if you have them, you can use blocks and just roll onto the blocks, or if you have a jack and some jack stands, and you can use those to lift your vehicle up. And just when you do that, just make sure you take all the safety precautions necessary. Like this one here, your lift point is right here on this on the subframe right here. So you get your jack and you jack it up right here, and then you get jack stands and put them over here on the pinch weld behind each tire on the front. Then there you have your lifted up front end, and you're able to drain your oil and get under the vehicle. Every vehicle is going to be a different size. Toyotas, you have a 14mm socket as your drain plug, but on these Hondas it's 17mm, and most other companies it varies by vehicle. What you can do is get a drain pan like this from any old parts store for couple bucks, and just drain your oil into this, and it'll slide under the vehicle easily, so you don't have to get something this high. With something like this though, if you have a larger truck or something, just make sure that you have one large enough to hold all of the oil that you're putting back in. Say you have a diesel truck that takes 12 quarts, you're gonna want a container that can hold at least 12 quarts so you don't overspill and make a mess in your driveway. On your drain plug here, there's this gasket. Every time you change your oil, just take a look at the condition of the gasket. If it's starting to flare up, or if it looks like it's compressed past a point, then you'd like to replace it with a new gasket. On this one, the condition is actually really good, so we're gonna leave it as is. Okay, so when the oil gets to this point here, where instead of it being a smooth stream down, it starts fading a couple inches past, that's the point where the oil is just about done, and you can put the drain plug back in. Make sure that you always torque the drain plug to manufacturer's spec, and then you can get to the oil filter. Now these, sometimes they can be pretty tight on there and difficult to get off. Get a rag and wipe down the drain plug. Always a good practice so you don't leave any drips anywhere. These can be pretty difficult to get off. This one, with it being a smaller oil filter like this, it's just gonna come right off pretty easy. And you just want to wipe it down so you don't leave any drips anywhere, because the oil on this one does drip onto the frame when you pull it out. So on this here, you want to make sure that you can see the metal. If this here is black, just rub your finger on it and make sure that the gasket off of the oil filter here And this black gasket here just sometimes can stick to the housing up there. And when that happens, you put a new oil filter on, the new filter will just fall off and oil will spill everywhere. And you don't want that to happen. So just make sure that the gasket stays with the oil filter and it's not on there. The oil we're putting in this vehicle is a Castrol full synthetic. That is the bulk oil that's in these bins here. But you can go to any parts store or anything along the lines of that and get oil of your preferred brand. It is a good practice to pre-fill the oil filter with oil. You don't have to fill it up all the way, just have some oil in there. Because when you start the vehicle, and first off, and if there's no oil in this, there will be a temporary loss in oil pressure on the first startup. And those are called dry starts. We're just gonna pour some oil in. We're gonna use some of the new oil and we're gonna put oil on this gasket here. What this does is it makes the oil filter easier to remove in the future. Tightness you want to go on these oil filters is usually about as tight as you can get by hand, or just hand tight just until you start feeling resistance, and then just a couple more turns from there. If you have a bigger truck like a diesel, they do require higher oil pressures, and you're going to want to use a band wrench or a wrench of some sort and tighten it down probably about a full turn past the hand tight. That prevents it from leaking when you press on the gas and the oil pressure builds up. So now you can grab a funnel, or if you're confident enough to not use a funnel, you can try that, but I don't like to make a mess. So I'm gonna use a funnel here. Now at this point, before you start it, good practice to check the oil level before and after you start it. If you don't pre-fill the filter, the oil level is going to read high on before you start. It's going to read about 0.2 or 0.3 quarts high. Wipe it down and you can put it back in and it'll tell you how much oil you have in there. And these dots here, the second dot is your full line. And this dot right here is a 1 quart low, and everything in between is the range of safe. And you can put that back in. And now we're going to go start it. That noise you just heard there was the loss of oil pressure at the start, like I said. And now you can check the oil level one more time, and our oil level is good. At this point, you can close the hood. So on a vehicle like this, on these Hondas, you're gonna wanna put it into accessory mode, which is just key on with the engine off. So that's turning if you have a key to start, you just turn the key until all the lights come on, but before you turn the engine on. On something like this, you don't have your foot off the brake, and then you press the push to start button twice, and then this comes up. And what you're gonna wanna do on this is push your trip button until it says oil life, and you just wanna hold it down. On these Hondas, they take a little bit to reset. And then when it starts flashing, you let go and then you hold down again. Then it resets and you're all good.